Let's create our first Pug file and compile it to HTML. Start up Visual Studio Code, and before we start work we'll delete testnode.js, as we don't need that anymore. Choose File, Open Folder, and open up your project folder. We want to keep our code files organized, so we'll make a folder for each lesson. Make a new folder and name it Lesson 01. Inside the Lesson 01 folder, create a new file and name it index.pug. We'll use this file to learn the basics of Pug syntax and see how it's compiled to normal HTML. In index.pug type doctype HTML, new line. HTML, new line. Indent 2 spaces, head. Indent 4 spaces, title, my first Pug page. Back out, indent 2 spaces, body. And back in, indent 4 spaces, H1, my first Pug page. Take care with the indentations. For each level of indentation, use 2 spaces. The content of this will all be very familiar if you've ever written any HTML, but its syntax isn't at all what you'll be used to if you haven't seen a Pug file before. Save the file. You can now compile this to normal HTML by typing pug index.pug at the command prompt, and this will create index.html in the same folder as index.pug. And we can open up the HTML version in another pane in VS Code. It's not very nice to look at though. Everything's on one line. Type pug index.pug -P. The P is for pretty. This gives us a human-readable indented version. So now we can see our normal compiled HTML with HTML angle brackets and opening and closing tags. The most obvious features of Pug are that the nesting of HTML tags is achieved by indentation, there are no angle brackets, and no pairs of opening and closing tags, just the tags themselves. The exact amount of white space for each level of indentation isn't important, but be consistent. 2 spaces is convenient and usual practice. Let's see the indentation in action. In index.pug, below the H1, add an HTML5 main tag, indented so that it's at the same level as the H1 tag above. Then go down a line and indent 1 level further, and add H2 and some text for the second level header on the same line. H2, this is the main part of my page. Press the up arrow key in the terminal window to run pug index.pug-p again. And you should see that the main section is nested inside the body tags, and inside that, the H2 containing this is the main part of my page. Unindent the H2 1 level, save the file, and press the up arrow key in the terminal window to run pug on the command line again. And now in the HTML, the H2 will appear not inside the main element, but below it. So that's the basic way Pug works. Take care with your indentation. If you get it syntactically wrong, the Pug compiler will throw an error. For instance, you might wrongly think that the doc type should be at the top level and everything else should be nested 1 level lower. Try this. Select everything except the doc type line and press the tab key to indent it. Save the file. Run Pug on the command line again. This time a load of error messages will be spat out at you and the compiler will not run. The doc type line and the HTML line must be at the same level of indentation. This feature guards against creating syntactic errors in our HTML files. Undo your last edit, put the H2 back inside the main element, and run Pug on the command line again to verify that it's OK now. One last thing before we move on to the next lesson. It's going to get very boring typing pug index.pug-p or even pressing the up arrow key every time we make a change to the Pug file. so let's automate that. Type the rather cryptic pug-w-o./P, and you should get the message watching index.pug. Let's unpick that command. First, we've run pug again, this time with the W flag, meaning watch. Then the dot means the current directory. So we'll be watching all the pug files in the current directory. Then -o means output, so next we'll specify the output directory. For simplicity's sake, for the moment we'll use the same directory, so this is a dot followed by a slash. Finally, -p, capital P gives us the pretty, human-readable output file we want. Make some changes to the pug file and save it. I won't tell you to save your files every time from now on, and the output file should now change to match automatically. So that's excellent. We've got our first pug file, we know the basics of pug syntax, the lack of angle brackets and closing tags, and how indentation results in nesting in the HTML output. Now a word about the source code for the project. If you go to my GitHub repo for the project, the address is in the video description below the video, you'll find all the source code in its final version at the end of the project. You can clone that to your local machine or save it as a zip file and download it. But at the end of every lesson, I also provide a link to the source code as it is at that particular moment in the course, and you can copy from that or download the files at that stage. Again, the links are below the video, so if you click on those you will find the index.pug and index.html pages as they are now. In this way, if anything goes wrong, you have a correct version you can use. Let's move on and make a more complete index file in the next lesson and get some practice writing pug.